Hello everyone, I'm Newt, and it's Wednesday, so that means it is time for another Crack-A-Pack video. Right now we're doing Iconic Masters. This is actually our last pack of it. We're just going to do 2 packs of it, and then get back to Ixalan next week. But we're going to open this pack and talk about what I would first pick in this pack in the Iconic Masters Limited format, which I think is a great format, and if you haven't had a chance to play it yet, you definitely should. So our first common is Jaces Phantom. This card is pretty much there for any deck that's going to be able to mill its opponent a lot. And if you can, it's actually a pretty viable win condition. I mean, it's a 1-mana 5/5 flyer. But most of the time, that's just not going to be what it does, and it's not really playable if you're just going to have it as a 1-mana 1/1 flyer. You need to consistently be able to make your opponent have the cards in their graveyard for it to be worth playing. Our next common is Hammerhand. This card is a very powerful aura. You know, normally I'm not high on auras in limited formats, although Ixalan right now is sort of an aberration. And that's usually because they don't do enough in the event that you get 2 for 1 for them to matter. And that's still true here if they can 2 for 1 you, but this gives you a lot of value. 1 mana makes it so you can make one of your opponent's creatures unable to block, and your creature gets +1/+1 and haste. So that's a huge boost. You can suddenly be swinging for way more damage out of nowhere, and this set is filled with prowess creatures. So it's even better in decks that are running prowess creatures. That's really the home for it. Red-white more than anywhere else, but it's good in any spell-heavy prowess deck or any aggressive deck in general. And it's what I would first pick right now from this pack. Next, we have Guard Duty. Now, this card's okay, but I don't really, like I've seen people talk about this as removal, and it kind of is, but what removal does is actually make it so a creature can't attack or block. Generally, it's able to stop both of those things. Guard Duty doesn't do that. So it's fine in a more controlling deck where making your opponent's best attacker unable to attack is good, or you have a lot of flyers or something, but it's very bad in most aggressive decks. It's not the kind of efficient removal, even though it's only 1 mana you want to be running, because your opponent's creatures can still block yours, and that is a big problem. So I don't like Guard Duty very much. I run it occasionally. I've brought it in out of the sideboard more than I've mainboarded it, though. Next, we have Mnemonic Wall. This thing's pretty great. You know, it's a 5-mana 0/4. Returns an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Of course, I'm in for that. I love little value cards like this. It also helps there's a Defender sub-theme going on in this set. It also helps that there's a bunch of spell-heavy themes going on in this deck. So it's good in a lot of decks, but not obviously in an aggressive one. I would probably first pick it now, the Wall, over the Hammerhand, but surely that's not going to remain that way. All right, next we have Dead Reveler, which I always call Dread Reveler. Just can't stop myself from saying that. You may have noticed that on my draft videos. It's a 3-mana 2/3 who can block, or a 3-mana 3/4 who can't block, but who has a +1/+1 counter, and that +1/+1 counter is good with +1/+1 counter-centric themes in this set, of which, you know, an entire shard, the Abzan shard, really is focused on. It's a solid card in those decks, and I would probably take it over Mnemonic Wall. So far, this pack hasn't been very strong, if you haven't noticed. None of these picks are really going to stick around, but I do, you know, I'm mentioning the ones that I do actually like playing, which are Dead Reveler, Mnemonic Wall, and Hammerhand. Next, we have Ivy Elemental. It's a rare card. Well, I didn't even mean for that to be a bad play on words, but it's a rarity in that this card was actually originally printed at rare and downshifted to common in this set, and it's proven to be quite good in this set. Why? Well, there are ramp decks, usually defender heavy. Some of them may be a little more dragony. And there's also +1/+1 counter decks, and it's good in both of them, and it carries a lot of weight. It can do a lot of work. It scales as the game goes on, and right now it is what I would pick out of this pack. I'm happy to play one in basically any green deck I build, especially if it's +1/+1 counter-centric or focused on casting X spells, for example, like red-green is. Next, we have Thrill Kill Assassin. Now, this one is a lot more flexible than our Dread Reveler. You know, of course, they both have Unleash, which you'd think would make them similar, but Thrill Kill Assassin is interesting to me in that as a 2-mana 1/2 with Death Touch, it's good in a control deck, right? Like, that's the kind of blocker you want in a control deck. It can kill any of your opponent's ground creatures when it blocks it. And as a 2-mana 2/3 who can't block, it's good in an aggressive deck. So it's good in either one, and that's more true about it than of, like, Dead Reveler. A 3-mana 2/3 for a control deck, it's nothing special. But a 2-mana 1/2 with Death Touch is. I would still take Ivy Elemental over it, but I do like Thrill Kill Assassin. Next up, we have Radiant Fountain, just a little land that gains you 2 life. Can only produce colorless mana. There is a life gain deck in this format, and that's basically why this exists. Even you have to have some pretty good fixing in your deck already, I feel like, to want to play Radiant Fountain. This is because it just dilutes your mana base so much. You don't really want a land producing colorless mana in your 2-color deck, especially if you're running like 16 lands. It's a little bit dangerous, but if you have some Evolving Wilds and some bounce lands and some creatures that can help you fix and things like that, then it's okay. There's just way better ways to gain life, though, than Radiant Fountain. It does it for free, but it's nothing special. Next, we have Battle, Rattle, Shaman, and this is kind of a weird card. I say that because it doesn't really fit in anywhere in this format. It's the kind of card that makes, like, creature tokens better. It's not really a creature tokens deck in this format. Sure, it's fine in any sort of aggressive deck, but it's nothing special. I haven't ever played it, and I don't think I've had anyone play it against me. It seems sort of out of place here. Next, we have Ariel Predator. It kills a flying creature and gains you 2 life. Good sideboard card, and especially in a format loaded with dragons. It's also a format where Phantom Monster is this annoying common card that can just end games, and Ariel Predator can kill that. But I'm still on, I think I'm still on Ivy Elemental. Our first uncommon is Wing Shards. This card's pretty good. It's even better when you can easily set up a high storm count. What I've had happen to me, like every time I've had it, and it's, you know, made me think the card's not as good as it is, but when I actually analyze my thought, I realize it's plenty good. What happens to me every time I've had one is my opponent looks at my hand some way or another, and then they play around it, and that has been a nightmare. If your opponent knows you have Wing Shards, it's bad. But they're not going to know most of the time, and you can sometimes, I've had decks where I had Swords to Plowshares and Wing Shards, so I could kill a creature that wasn't attacking, and then Wing Shards to kill their 2 attacking creatures, and that is obviously really awesome. It's a 3 for 2. You're probably going to win that game. But it is situational, and you're not always going to be able to make the storm count go up. Your opponent's probably not going to play a pre-combat spell or something like that. You shouldn't, by the way, if you're playing against someone who's playing white and they're leaving mana up, you should just not ever play pre-combat spells unless it's crucial you cast them pre-combat, because otherwise you're making their Wing Shards count go up, their storm count go up. And I think I probably would take Wing Shards over Ivy Elemental, but it's not. It's kind of close. But I think this is my new first pick. Struggling with lighting today. All right, I guess that's the best I'm going to do. But anyway, a 3-mana 2/3 with Outlast, who gives all your creatures with +1/+1 counters on them flying. These creatures with Outlast are great anyway because they just get to be bigger and bigger threats every turn if you want them to. It's also very good because they all come with some upside. In this case, all your creatures with +1/+1 counters on them gain flying. This means, you know, the first turn you tap this, it becomes a 3/4 with flying. It can get bigger. If your other creatures have +1/+1 counters on them, they're going to have flying too. And the +1/+1 counter deck seems to be one of the decks that sort of gets there the easiest in this format because it's spread across 3 colors really well. And so I like Ascendant Falconer a lot. Even if you have no other +1/+1 counter things going on, it's a solid card, and we're going to take it right now out of this pack. Next, we have Tavern Swindler. It's here mostly for the life gain deck. It's kind of a weird card, though, because you can actually lose life from it and just lose life from it. But it's a 2-mana 2/2 with upside. It's good in the life gain deck. Don't want to first pick it, of course, but it is playable there. All right, our rare is Sarah Ascendant, a 1-mana 1/1 with lifelink that gets to be big and scary in the world where you get to 30 or more life. If you're the life gain deck, you should probably play it, but even then, it's like hard to get to 30 life and stay there in limited. Granted, once it gets there, it's going to make sure you stay there because it gains you life, so it sort of snowballs, and your opponent's probably going to lose if your Sarah Ascendant is swinging in the air. I mean, it's pretty hard to come back from that, but I still wouldn't first pick it. I'd only play it in a very specific deck. And our foil, not as exciting as our last foil, which was Swords to Plowshares, but it's a fun card, and that is Festering Newt. It's just a 1-mana 1/1 that when it dies gives something -1/-1. This means it can trade up and kill 2 drops. Obviously, it has the silly combos it can do with Bog Brew Witch. But that's not really what you're not going to be first picking it for that unless you're really trying to force the deck. In the end, this pack was actually, especially for a format that is quite strong, is actually kind of weak. I think we take Ascendant Falconer in the end, followed by Wing Shards, and then like Ivy Elemental or Hammerhand, something like that. Not a great pack, but, you know, Ascendant Falconer is not a bad place to start. And if that lane is open, your +1/+1 counter deck is going to be pretty good. Tell me in the comments what you would first pick. And I'll be back next week. We're doing some more Ixalan Crack-A packs for the next few weeks.